Good afternoon, good evening to everyone, and especially to people of Iran and prisoners in Iran. We are going to watching us today. It is my privilege today to start this little way, perhaps, of support for human rights of people of Iran with this podcast, which is going to be the place to giving voice to them, to amplify their voice since the start of their strikes in every Tuesday. Now we are at the 76th week of strikes, and this is the best way we have to amplify their voice and to call upon the international community to support them and to stand up by their side for respect of human rights and stop executions. So I'm Professor Antonietta Elia, and I'm also senior legal advisor for a few international organizations. It is my honor to stay with all of you today. And I would like to underline that all my expression today are in my personal capacity as an academic and legal professional. And today I have the privilege to have our first guest, and I'm immensely grateful to have accepted this invitation and to share with us this great challenge today. It is Mr. Ravi from Singapore. Thank you also for connecting late at night in Singapore, right? In the afternoon, and just a few words about the immensely extensive, I don't want to say career, but I prefer to say dedication of Mr. Ravi to fight against impunity in international legal order, to stop death penalty, especially in Singapore, where he is based, and its strong activities also at legislative level, pressuring for modification of constitutional amendments, possibly against human rights, like the section 377A related to, please correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Ravi, against LGBTQ rights in Singapore. So his extensive dedication has been recognized internationally, including from the International Bar Association. And we are delighted to have him, for I have accepted our invitation today. So we are going to have a very short but intensive conversation with Mr. Ravi today because of the incredible escalation of execution, arbitrary detention and execution all around Iran, in every prison of Iran. Doesn't matter the gender, the age, and the respect for any kind of basic rights, starting from the right to life, of course. So, Mr. Ravi, I would really appreciate any comment on the basis of your experience in dealing and supporting people in the death penalty row in order to stop their execution. So what is the big challenges, according to you, to have to guarantee actually the access to justice to people in that situation in an authoritarian regime?
I think that thank you for that introduction and having me in this channel as well, or on this rather than this podcast. Now, first of all, I think it is very important to look at the structure of the defense mechanisms that are in place. Now, the frontline defenders are the lawyers who are involved in the defense. I mean, leaving aside the families and the activists. So, the lawyers who are involved in the defense work need to be protected psychologically. I mean, they will have a lot of financial issues, difficulties as well because of the extensive resources at the disposal of the state. And versus you are looking at the state versus an individual, whether it is a DNA test or whether it is you are mounting extensive legal arguments, you need support. So you can't just be the era that we are right now in. It's even more difficult for lawyers to just defend on their own cases, so they need a team. And in my case, I was fortunate because I had this network that I built up over the years, and also, of course, international organization as Amnesty International. Then we had who helped on the campaigning, and I connected myself with lawyers from like Doughty Street Chambers, one of the best chambers in UK. And recently, of course, the recently meaning when I was in practice, yeah, I mean, I've been suspended from practice a few years, 2 years ago. So we had the support from the death penalty project from London. We also had support from research support from, capital punishment justice project, CPJP from Australia. So these are the groups. You're talking about lawyers. You're talking about all coming together to help the lawyers in terms of legal submissions and the complexities of the case to give support. So the individual lawyer must be informed of these resources which are available. So then you can be able to put up a very credible defense for the client, because life is at stake and the death penalty is irreversible. Of course, I also faced a lot of challenges that we can discuss later. But more importantly, it is also, as I said, the frontline defense being these lawyers, they must be really equipped with the legal defenses. Yeah, so that will be my first point of that I would like to highlight. Now, secondly, it is also important to have, and I became an activist 20 years ago because of the difficulty I had in first death penalty case to argue and reopen a case, and the court said, no, you can't reopen, it's too late, to which I challenged, I mean, this man is still alive, where can it be late when a man is still alive? You can say when the person is dead, but, so that sort of difficulty, so the legal process itself can be problematic. Like, for example, in Singapore, when you try to reopen cases, and if the court find that it is not of meritless, or it doesn't, then they can order cost for abuse of process against lawyers. They call it abuse of process, and I have been fined, or cost orders have been repeatedly imposed against me, thousands and thousands of dollars. To the tune of 70,000, I think I've paid. It's like a fine for reopening cases because they regarded it as an abuse of process, and so on and so forth. So unless you have a system which is, we talk about judiciary, right? There must be an independent judiciary. In Singapore, the judiciary is independent. There are independent structures in place, but it is very, very onerous on the lawyers when they are taking up death penalty cases. Yeah.
Yeah, I take that point about the cost, because you know that United Nations and specifically the committee, the UN Committee for Human Rights, when defined access to justice, include the truly access to justice. It means that it must be guaranteed free access to justice, not just the mere existence of a judiciary system or a tribunal instituted by law. It is sufficient to confirm that independence systems it is in place. In order to have that, it must be also affordable for people in need of justice. And this is actually, I can say, a problem we see all around the world with different factors. But in the case of Iran in particular, and in general terms, in the cases of authoritarian regimes, the point is not only related to the cost, but the fact that they are totally excluded from any contact with any lawyer or supporting defense team, like you correctly said. So the difficulty is to try to find a way to support them, because, for example, one of the idea to open that way of support through that podcast was that Tuesday is the day where prisoners are submitted to isolation. So they live in prison incommunicated, but on Tuesday, the situation, if it's possible, is even worse. It's even worse. So what can be the alternative? Do you think that there is a way, for example, for international community, I don't know, you mentioned, and I do really appreciate the mention to the networks, the international networks. Do you think there is any international form to pressure that against that situation, for example, through the networks or any other international institutions? What is your idea and your experience?
I will cut to the chase on this very important question. At the end of the day, we can have lots of discussions about the death penalty and how we feel and so on and so forth. As we speak, executions are taking place. As we speak, death is being, you know what I mean. So I think that what would be, and I think this will be something should be a follow-up to this discussion, and I hope that those lawyers internationally who are, and organizations who are involved in this case, including especially from Iran and international human rights lawyers, should take this path seriously. I have been thinking long and hard about this matter after independent documentations and, most importantly, amplification of these voices, from civil society. So the Magnitsky, this particular sanction came from when a Russian lawyer, who lost his life in Russia as a result of discovery of fraud and all that by the state. So that was the sanction that was particularly involved. So those officials, including the judges, I will say, because who have been participating in this, and if they have participated, I'm not saying that because I don't have enough information, I'm not so experienced in Iranian matters. The fact that it seems that the law has been used to is weaponized against political prisoners who have been executed. Come on, 600 executions have taken place in June last month, I understand. I mean, that's horrendous. So what has to be done is that there's no more compromise, and campaigning has to go, and all that, be candlelight vigils and Tuesday campaigns and so on and so forth. But there has to be this sort of Magnitsky kind of sanction initiated in perhaps in US and perhaps in other parts of Europe, like even in UK, there have been acts, particularly a particular act could, like the Uyghurs Act in relation to China, right? So that particular kind of Magnitsky kind of sanction could be explored. Secondly, and this is something that I would be quite keen to assist, and if this conversation takes, if we can take this conversation further, it's to maintain crime against inhumanity action, crime against humanity action in places like France, places like in Latin America, where a significant crime against humanity action has been taken by our colleague Michael Pollack, who's part of our the other Law 8 international team that I was talking about, that I was part of. So what we can do is that we can file actions in countries that allow universal jurisdiction
Thank you.
against. I think Spain is one of those countries, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. But to quote this important element, I totally agree with you about the need. Thank you very much for mentioning the reference to the necessity to improve the implementation of universal jurisdiction in other states.
Yes.
Despite there is no an international obligation in someone can say there is at least a duty to fight against impunity. And this is a very great instrument. The big challenge we have, I can mention the European side, for example,
Right.
is that not all member states have an internal law regulating the exercise of universal jurisdiction. You mentioned Spain, rightly, because yes, Spain has a system, a well-established and defined by law in relation to the exercise of universal jurisdiction. So this is also the place to ask to those states in place, with a system in place, to
Right.
exercise that, and to those states late in implement a criminal, a code of crimes against humanity. I think, for example, to Italy. Italy at that moment has no list of crimes against humanity clearly developed in order to act against such kind of heinous crime against human beings. So more is needed to be done, and the way forward is, of course, the one of the possible way to sanctioning and request for accountability is the implementation of universal jurisdiction. Of course, it would be more impactful to have a European Union request over the member states to take action against this situation and stop this execution. So this is the way for hope and the time a time for to act at the same time. So I agree with you about the need to reinforce the universal jurisdiction. And
Right.
yeah.
Would like to actually add here, because and I think that it calls for greater clarity. And thank you for your wonderful input, because there's a two-track approach that we are looking at in this conversation. One is to approach the various European states, right? To to apply pressure, some form of diplomatic, whether it's diplomatic sanctions or diplomatic pressure, you call it. So that is the diplomatic route, so to speak. Or they have, and so on and so forth. So basically, the other approach is what I was speaking about, is that, I was basically, when it came to this crime against humanity issue, I'm talking about application being taken out in courts, like in the French court, which has developed jurisprudence on crime against humanity. I'm talking about in a situation whereby the country is not a signatory to the Rome Statute. So there is enough international jurisprudence to define what is crime against humanity. So that is where I think that that I'm coming from. So basically, there are countries like Canada, US, I understand that countries like Greece, the reason who allow applications in court on crime against humanity applications, this could be enforced against the state actors. For example, the Attorney General of Iran, the Chief Justice, and the key officials like even the Minister of Law or the Prime Minister, they will be the defendants. And once the court grants that remedy, and though that can be enforced against them, that means when they travel, they will have state sanctions. They will have, So that was where I was coming from. So there are two approaches.
Yeah, this is very interesting. Thank you for this that mention, and we must work to strengthen that way because it's one of the most feasible, from my point of view. Also, agree with you, feasible way to ask for justice for and the fight against impunity,
Yes.
especially supporting people in Iran, in prison of Iran. So the other point I would like to, since we mentioned the reference to international organizations, in the case of European Union, it's a kind of particular situation because you know that there is this double level of decision.
Yes.
But I would like to recall here, especially for people who do not have the habit to be in touch with with how the European Union works. So remember that every decision in relation to external relationship, defense, foreign policies, and so on, at the level of European Union are must be adopted by consensus by the Council of European Union in the form of head of states and governments. So at the end of the day, what I would like to underline is that at the level of European Union, decisions are always taken in relation to foreign relations, external relations, by the head of states, of the member states, by consensus. So if you want, this is from my point of view, but not only mine, the less level developed section of integration of European Union. So there is, I underline that point because it's one of the obstacles maybe we have in trying to convince the European Union to act unanimously against the situation and stop the inhumanity in Iran in that.
Yes.
So it is important to underline that aspect in my view. So, but the other point I would like to underline to you is in relation to the special rapporteur, because I thank you to make the reference about the June and the escalation of execution. Actually, it is sad to say that because it is unimaginable that the execution in Iran grew up at 232%. So 232% more, putting Iran on the top list of death penalty execution and arbitrary detentions. Because we need to underline that the breach of international human rights law start with the arbitrary detention, and then collect a list of human rights violation, infinite list of human rights violations. So my question to you is in relation to the role of a special procedure on the situation of Iran, the special rapporteur. You know that there is a UN special rapporteur related to the situation of Iran. So what do you think should or could do more to give visibility, to put pressure over Iran to collect more data, because one of the other difficulties we lawyers have is to have data. And I would like to express my gratitude to the organization, the local organization, for their incredible work to collect data and evidence of so many cases of arbitrary detention and enforced disappearance in Iran. So what is, according to you, what can do the special rapporteur to improve at least its work in relation to the situation of Iran?
Right. You see, you mentioned about international, basically, in an international UN mechanism, which is the role of the special rapporteur for summary executions and, basically on death penalty, how the UN can seek information. The rapporteur has the mandate to seek information from the state on the number of executions that's taking place and to have the facts and figures right. Because the only source that really, the credible source that we have is actually Amnesty International, apart from the NGOs from Iran. But I also see that Iran is a signatory to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, ICCPR. And, when they don't even respect local, they don't have, Iran does not have much regard to its own human rights situation domestically. I'm not sure how much of impact ICCPR will, will be well regarded by the state. Definitely we see impunities against the ICCPR as well. But because ICCPR has also the clause Article 6, which is right to life, and prohibition of torture, which is Article 7, cruel and inhuman degrading punishment. So these are the mandates that the UN has to seek the accountability from Iran in respect of these two articles that I've cited. But I don't think that I need further research on this about the second optional protocol. I don't think so they would have signed, because otherwise they can't hold, Iran cannot proceed with executions. I think that the UN reporters, that UN office plays a significant role in documenting and putting pressures to the extent that the UN reporter, I'm sure, UN reporters on summary executions, they do a fantastic work. I've also seen their work in the past and engaged the UN reporters in the past as well in relation to Singapore, Malaysia, and other countries in Southeast Asia. I think there has to be a more transparent approach where the reporter can make a visit to Iran. And
this is truly hard, especially now, but in general, that authoritarian regime are not so open. Not only authoritarian regime, especially authoritarian regime, are not so open to be controlled by international authorities, especially in such how do you say that, such a sector of politics considered under national sovereignty, like the human rights and the welfare of their own nationals. So this is a shared problem all around the world, unfortunately, but especially in authoritarian regimes. So I appreciated the reference about the collection of data about the UN Special Rapporteur and the fact that there is the possibility to claim the violation of ICCPR. But what I am interested to ask you, since you mentioned ICCPR, is the question of obligation erga omnes. So you mentioned the right to life, you mentioned the respect, the prevention, the prohibition of torture and ill treatment. So the address of the Human Rights Committee in relation to few to few rights granted by the convention is the reference to the obligation erga omnes entailed inside the convention. So maybe, I don't know what you think, maybe one suggestion could be to consider that obligations entailed inside the ICCPR are not only are not legally binding for state parties, but some of them are erga omnes, entail consequently or erga omnes obligations. So for all members of international community, despite their membership to the convention. I don't know what you think about that. I'm interested to know your opinion.
So, do I get it? I mean, basically, is your question related to, given this international obligations that that are in place, how international community can mobilize this, or how?
Yeah,
what is actually your question?
Yes, I try to be clear.
Yeah.
There is, and considering that who is going to watching us, not necessarily could be a lawyer, so we must to be as clear as we can, not speaking lawyer language, you know.
Yes.
I used to say so. Despite, according international law, a state is obliged, a treaty is entails obligation to state parties of that treaty. Inside the Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, we encounter, you mentioned norms, specific norms,
Yes.
that they have, they overcome the participation of a state to the treaty. So even though if a state is not party of a treaty, it may entails obligation, positive obligation or negative ones, to a given state to prevent a violation, to stop a violation, or to avoid, to take action to provoke a violation of human rights, like in the case of the obligation to not use torture and ill treatment against. So maybe now it's clear.
The thing is that, there are all these international obligations, and these are basically the international norms, so to speak. But at the end of the day, the question is, like what you highlighted, we are all speaking this very complicated and very technical international human rights instruments, so to speak. So I think that we have to translate this at the ground level.
Yeah.
And that is what you are saying. Basically, as far as this international norms like ICCPR is concerned, from what I see, Iran is flagrantly violating this obligations. So international community, they have to use these mechanisms, like when we mention UN, to adopt a multi-layered approach in terms of, for example, whether it's independent documentation and amplify the voices through media, uh, continuously talking about this ICCPR obligations. These ICCPR obligations, they are not going to regard this much with seriousness. That's where the situation right now is. And that's why we are speaking about the situation in Iran. So we have to use this as to highlight in the documentation process that we talked about earlier at the UN level, and amplification of the voices, the suppressed voices in Iran. In the prison, there's protests going on, we understand. Every Tuesday is, a lot of activities go on in the prison. There are protests in the prison itself. There's a campaign is going on, and that needs to be amplified through the media. Again, the right to freedom of association, even in prison, the right, then you have also civil society, and also we have not only to forget we have parliament. We can't ignore the fact that in Iranian parliament, there is also these opposition voices as well, and who have been suppressed. So I think that the thread that runs in all this collectively that solidarity in this should disrupt the oppression.
Yeah, I
Yes.
totally agree with you. And let me quote one of the fathers of the Italian criminal law that sometimes many Italian lawyers used to forget. But I think that it is indispensable to say that a law can be legal, but not legitimate.
Yes.
It means that it can follow the legal procedure, but not substantially in conformity with the rule of law in some way.
Yes.
Let me be clear in that way. So we must advocate for the legitimacy, for the respect for the rule of law, which is based on the respect of human dignity. Without the
Yes.
respect of human dignity, there is no other human rights possible. And the worst expression against the human dignity is exactly that penalty.
Absolutely. And I think that this strikes at the heart of civil disobedience movement, where what you said earlier, what may be legal may not be just, and what may be just may not be legal. And that
Yeah,
is why that is where the importance of civil disobedience movement, whether it is in Singapore, whether it is in Malaysia. I mean, Iran is at the other end of authoritarianism. Singapore has a what we call a benevolent authoritarianism, you know. So we have that is where this this conversation underscores the importance of civil disobedience movement, when the very law is being used to weaponize against political dissidents. In Myanmar, this has happened. They executed
yeah.
former parliamentarians in Myanmar, the last executions that took place, I think about 2 years ago. And so this has also taken place in Iran. So this brings us, I mean, that campaign that I have mounted several campaigns together with families of death row inmates. We continue to do the campaigns in our, in our own ways. We continue this. We respective groups participate, and they are all out doing great work in Singapore and across the region. And very sadly, very few people know that the level of executions that is, even the activists are not very aware of the situation in Iran. From what
No,
I see, it is
exactly.
the second highest after China. China has 1.34 billion population, and Iran has less than 10% of China's population. And look at this, second highest execution in the world.
No, it's
And
the first one,
oh, is it?
unfortunately.
Oh,
Iran is
yes.
on the top of
Oh,
execution.
that
And
is something.
arbitrary detention, not only execution, but arbitrary detention too. As you
Yes,
rightly mentioned, for percentage of population, and but the point is, it is not related to numbers, and we must remember that those numbers are people, are father, mother, daughter.
yes, absolutely.
So that's the point. The difficulty to uh, uh, not just to inform the international community, to convince the international community to be uh, strongly engaged against that situation, because it is not only inhuman, it has any kind of possible. Uh, it is not only legal; it's immoral. it's
Yes.
against it's against humanity.
Absolutely, and absolutely, that is why I think that I always, whenever I participate in any conversations, my mind is going in the second track of how can we do something, especially lawyers like ourselves who are legally trained, you know, um, you know, love and compassion must deploy every tool against inhumanity, and law is one such tool that I strongly believe. And I think that we should put some perspective here and see what, of course, you have been longer in this work, and which I fully respect, and the immense amount of engagement that yourself has done in this work is I'm deeply impressed, and we are all very grateful, and we should take this to the next step, because we all cannot do the same stuff because we are all overstretched. So I think that follow up from this, I'll be quite interested to take this forward, this conversation, to see how a crime against humanity, this is crime against humanity. If 600 persons have been executed, and this is the highest in the world, then there is a segment of community. There's nothing more than, the international law is developed very well to capture this, even in a ISIS, what do you call, Roman statute kind of situation, where the country does not have to be signatory to the Roman statute for an action to be maintained in, a place like France.
Yeah.
It has been maintained against China in other situations. So this is something that where a remedy can be obtained from the court against the officials, against the judiciary, if the judiciary has participated in this inhumanity, the attorney general, and so on and so forth. I don't really have the full facts on the extent in which that these organs of the state or the state act, particular individual state actors have participated in these transgressions, causing
Because it
this.
is difficult to reach to collect evidence and data, as you can imagine. It's really difficult, but there is, I repeat again, there is a very huge effort by local organizations and by the same prisoners to their strikes, their hunger strikes, to raising up the voice and put the attention over the situation. So this is a very big step forward
Yes.
on the way of searching for justice. But the other point, I would thank you to make reference, because one of the reason of our meeting today is also the reference to to certain part of Asia Pacific region. So I thank you very much for your reference to Myanmar situation, and I would like to take this opportunity also to send my support to people fighting in Myanmar, and especially to Rohingya, that I was supporting Rohingya community. I was supporting especially during the pandemic. So my support is also for them. And it is important to me to make that reference, because what I used to say is that the fight by Iranian prisons is not just for Iran prisoners, is not made only for them. They are making a battle for all humanity, for all those living in similar situation in other states, in other contexts. So it is important to have that kind of connection. So thank you very much for connecting this situation too, because as we say, injustice somewhere is injustice everywhere, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So I think that I don't want to take your time more that you offered to us, and we are really glad to have you. So the idea we have is to going to conclude every session asking to our guests, in that case you, to send a message to prisoners in Iran of support. So please share your message to them, because they are going to watch that. So
Yes,
at least we hope they are going to watch us. So the
yes,
floor is
thank you so much, and I would say that our brothers and sisters who are languishing behind this horrendous punishment, which is unbelievable to the international community, please rest be assured that you are not forgotten. Your courage in the face of repression echoes far beyond those prison walls. Every word you have spoken, I've just had, the opportunity to see some of the messages, some of the activities that was forwarded to me by our colleague from Iran. Every word you have spoken, every act of resistance that you present, it matters. And as someone who has stood in courtrooms knowing a client could be hanged within days, I say this with all my heart. Your struggle is being heard. We will continue to speak your names, tell your stories, and demand justice until you are free. So keep your hope high, keep your faith strong, and we are with you. I know it is very, very difficult. It is very easy for us to speak from here. It is totally different for you languishing behind the prison walls, facing such immense pressure, such immense cruelty, which is unimaginable in many parts of the world. But the universe is watching, and we, in our own ways, humble ways, will participate in this whole campaign along with you to end this cruel and inhuman punishment and degrading sentence. Thank you so much for allowing this opportunity to be part of your journey. Thank you.
Thank you to you, Mr. Ravi, for your words. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for accepting the challenge to try to find a way to amplify the voice of prisoners of Iran. And so before to conclude, I would like to thank you to our technical team behind us for their support. And let me spend a few words to people of Iran, and to say that we are here for you. It is an immense privilege. I think I cannot find a word when I say that it is an immense privilege to me to be here and stand up to your side. Thank you for your trust. I really appreciate that you don't stop to fight, and you choose me to stand up on your side. So this is a message for people of Iran, but it's also a message for people suffering all around the world, all around the world because of oppression and human rights violation. The fight of Iranian people is an example for all around the world. So we are here to strengthen hope, to trust in that the justice is possible, and to get your hand virtually to go against impunity. Thank you very much, Mr. Ravi, again to join us.
And thank you so much, Dr. Antonietta, for your kind interview, as well as allowing me to participate in this program.
Our privilege, and I hope that this is just the start of our intense cooperation, because united we are stronger. After all, we are the people of United Nations, not states. And this is one of the aim of that podcast, united people, not states. So this is Professor Elia. Thank you to watching us and to stay with us. I request you, please, and humble, to follow us on the principal social platform like LinkedIn, Instagram, and to stay in touch, and see you next Tuesday. Thank you very much.